As a big picture, I think this is pretty accurate to how most educated historians would view what has gone on this planet in the last 6,000 years. It's telling us that 4500 BC, a descent into novelty is underway, and it didn't start very far back here. Quite a steep descent into novelty. And in fact, what we find here is Sumer, Ur, Chaldea, Babylon, Egypt. And so a series of civilizations, each leaping beyond the accomplishments of the other until we reach the pyramid building phase of Egypt, the Old Kingdom. And then, right down here, there's a kind of novelty trough. Egyptian civilization rages across here, and in fact, it does fulfill the intuition of theosophists and other people that Egypt achieved something that was not surpassed in novelty until early Roman times. In other words, all this happens, but you don't get this level of novelty till you get over here to about 220 BC. And I maintain technologically and so forth and so on, that's probably just about right. This upswing back into habit, the historical record is characterized by brutal civilizations. The Hittites, the Mitanni, Imperial Assyria, motorcycle gangs with chariots is what we're talking about here. If we were to blow this up, we would see that there were some interesting plunges into novelty, phonetic alphabets, expansion of Phoenician trade routes, and so forth and so on. But the turning point is up here. And as far as Western history is concerned, what happens up here is Homer sings his song. And I maintain, symbolically and literally, that's what started it off. That's what set the last phase in motion. I had a professor, maybe I'm echoing his prejudice, but a philosophy professor in college, and he said, "You want to know where it all went wrong? I'll tell you where it all went wrong. When the Greeks stopped being fishermen and pulled their boats up on the shore and started to talk philosophy, it all went wrong." Well, I don't know if it went wrong. It certainly went in a different direction. Homer sings his song, and it begins an almost unbroken cascade into modernity. I want to talk about this one for a minute because there is an aspect of this theory that I find very appealing that I haven't touched on yet, which is, if you've been paying attention, you've noticed that screens repeat themselves. Remember I showed you a screen where I said at the top of a certain mountain Homer sang his song? This is that same shape, but we're now not looking at thousands of years, we're only looking at 52 years. Well, what's the deal? Well, because this thing is a fractal, it has built into it automatic resonances. So it gives you a very rich data field to work with. If this is a span of time from 1944 to 1996, it on another level is a span of time from roughly late Egyptian time to the Umayyad Caliphates, with Homer singing his song up here. On the short scale, the 52-year scale, this is 1967. Now, these two things are according to this theory, in a situation of resonance or geometrical relationship to each other. Is there anything about the world of Homer that is like the world of 1967? And I maintain yes. a tendency to easy lifestyles, loose shoes, and sophomoric philosophy characterized both eras. And you see, it's a way of explaining such transient phenomena as fads and fashions. Why are we suddenly putting lion claws on the legs of our bathtubs? Well, because we're passing through a period of resonance when that was done in the past. In other words, the orthodox theories of history and time would tell you that the most important moment shaping this moment is the moment which just preceded this moment. It was, as it were, the conduit for the wave of causal necessity to arrive at this moment. But I'm saying something different. I'm saying that every moment in time is an interference pattern made by other moments in time that are related to each other not through linear seriality, but through this much more complex schema of relations. So, if you suddenly walk into a room and there's a heavy hit of black granite, inverted corners, and silver shadowing, it's a Jugendstil resonance. And I live in a kind of waking hallucination. I have a little aphorism which covers this. It's Rome falls 9 times an hour. It falls more than that and less than that, but let's say it falls 9 times an hour. Well, then your job is to notice every time it falls. In other words, what we think of as our random musings and our personal mental furniture is in fact our subconscious awareness of these systems of temporal resonance operating around us. So, as I look out at a crowd like this, if I let myself go, I notice that Kant is sleeping in the corner, and that Madame Lafarge seems to have just come in from the baths and taken her seat, and Cleopatra is headed for the John, and so forth and so on. How real is this? Who knows? It's a matter of discernment. Yes. Well, what I would say, first of all, let's get a little more honest here. There's a lot of argument about where Homer actually sang his song. We can only really pinpoint it to within about 150 years. It's up here somewhere. Now, if I could zero in on this, but 1967 is here. 1968 is just over the top. The first moon flight is there. Well, now suddenly we have the Homeric resonance. What is Homer but a story of noble men on a long and far voyage, and eventually the homeward return, and then the heroics of that echoes over the centuries. And probably the only heroic episode of the 20th century that's unsullied by hypola and manipulation and so forth is the flight to the moon. That was pretty amazing. I don't care about the politics or any of the rest of it. What it took to do that, you notice we're not doing it. We don't have the gumption, the technology, or the national focus to do that. And in a sense, I take the moon flight to be, in a sense, the capstone of modernism. I consider postmodern time to begin after that. What was the 70s but a whining reprise of the 60s? And then everything else has followed from that, yeah.